Hello everybody, Gisele Grenier here. In the video lesson for today, I'm going to be showing you how to use layering stencils. So I've got, I think four from Deco Art called Personally Yours, Between the Lines. And there's 4 different types of lettering styles. There's newsprint, saloon, to give you an idea, roaring 20s, which I think is really cool, and solid. What's unique about these stencils, let me grab one that I haven't cut up, is, oh my god. Okay, so you get the actual letter stencils. Okay, you don't get the numbers though. And then you get the patterns. And then you just cut these up. So what you do is, there's a bunch of different ways that you can use, and I use these standalone as well, is that you can create these really cool designs by layering them to get actual patterns inside the letters. So what I thought I'd do is I'm going to do these in a couple of videos because they can get a little long. And these are kind of bulky. I'm actually tempted just to cut these out, but I'll try to see. It's it's awkward for me. It's awkward. So where's the one I'm going to use newsprint? Oh my goodness! And then there's instructions on the back. Hopefully the wind of this stuff flipping over isn't making the microphone go all crazy. Okay. Oh, I just gotta go back to bed. All right. Oh, so there's a picture here. So where's the letters? So there's the letters there, and here are the backgrounds. I'm going to show you the backgrounds, but they're hopefully the glare won't be too bad. Oh, I can't wait for Joe to move my table tomorrow. Oh my god. Oh, so these are the. So you've seen where I've done. Oh, let me move the light. No, it's not that light. It's the overhead light. So these are. Just going to show you these. These examples. Stars. So they're small, and these are great for artist trading cards. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the circle, because you know I'm obsessed with circles, right? No room. Okay. And I'm going to take a little card, and what I'm going to do is just, see, they fit perfectly for artist trading cards, but I want to use the letter G for that. Of course, you know, G, me. My actual, this is the art stuff, my actual side business. The business I have with Joe is Legacy Designs, but the sister company to that, where I just deal with female creatives, my business is called It's Just G, because it's just me. So I'm going to use that one. So there's a few different ways of doing this. The way I'm going to show you now, this one I'm going to show you now is basically we're going to be creating various backgrounds, and we're going to use a wipeout technique for the stencil. So it's going to be easier if I just show you. I'm going to show you complete, beginning to end, including even the priming. So for the supplies, I'm going to show you these two, just in case. So what I've got, first of all, gesso for sure to prime the card. And then I'm going to use the Deco Art Extreme Sheen Rose Gold and Deco Art Media Fluid Carbon Black. I'm not sure if this is going to work. I may go to the Deco Art Media Black Gesso because of the matte finish. This may be a little too transparent. I'm going to try and see. We'll see what happens. So for the gesso for the card, okay, so you can do this a couple of ways. If your card is going to be, it'll make more sense as I go through it. When you do the wipeout, if you want it to be dark, you're going to use a black gesso. If you want it to be light, you're going to use a light gesso. And for the gesso, whether you want to use, a thick gesso, thin gesso, whatever you want to do, that's fine. From what I'm going to be using, I'm going to use a thick gesso because I really want it to be bright. I don't want any of this brown paper showing through the gesso, which is what I would typically get with the chalky gesso because it is more fluid. And I covered it off in a previous video why I've put this into a smaller tube, because as you go down, as you start getting about the halfway point, there's air in the bottle and stuff starts to dry and then it gets clumpy. So I'm putting it into smaller containers. So, oh goodness. So this is the thick version of the gesso, because this I've got 3 versions. I've got this where I've made it thin, as is, and then where I've thickened it up on purpose. And, oh, you'd think I would have prepped for this. Oh, I'm going to use my number 8 bristle bright, just any bristle brush, doesn't matter what it is. And I want to push this without any water. I want to push this into the card. And what I'm doing is I'm creating an initial layer because I don't want any texture in this at all. You can if you want, I don't. And I find that if I use this without, oh, the camera's shaking. Tomorrow's the last day. I don't use water with this, especially for this particular technique, because I don't want any texture to come through. So I put the initial layer and then it dries pretty quickly. Then I come back with another layer. And I like that grunge look. I just don't want it to be perfectly smooth. Like, I don't want it to be like that. I want it to be really rough. But I don't want any heavy ridges of paint. You know, I've been doing videos now for, I don't know. Joe and I have been together 26 years. 17 years, I think. And you'd think I'd have this table issue mastered. All right. So I'm liking that. So it's relative. I can see a little bit of the paper coming through. It's not too bad, because now what we're going to do is, that's going to dry. I'm going to put, once that's dry, I'm going to put a solid layer of rose gold. Let me just get the excess paint out of that. Now I'm going to dry this because you do not want this to be wet at all. Let that cool off for a bit. Now the Extreme Sheen metallic paint, this is super high gloss, and it helps create a bit of a slick surface when you want to wipe things out. You gotta make sure you shake the crap out of it. You really, really, really gotta shake it. I'm going to use a fresh brush. Oh, and I'm going to get a paper towel handy, preferably a clean one, because we're going to use this to create a little bit of texture. So I'm going to apply that. And then you can use whatever technique. If you don't like metallic paint, then don't use metallic paint. Use whatever you want. I just want to make sure I get good coverage on this, good amount of paint. Okay, I'm just going to take the paper towel, I'm just going to gently put it on top. Lift that up. What that does, it gets rid of, I have a little bit of texture in here. It's flat texture. Okay, it's flat texture. I just wanted to get rid of the heavy ridges. But because the metallic paints are, they're a little bit more transparent, I just want to be a little bit more careful as to what I've got there. See? Okay, now we've got to dry this one. And with metallic paint, be careful how you dry it so you don't burn it. And you always have to keep your drying tool, whether you're using a hairdryer or a heat gun, moving. Otherwise, you'll start to bubble and burn your paper. Okay, you can see some of the lines here. I think I'm gonna add another layer. I want that to be a little bit stronger. And I can see just a little bit of the pattern through it. And you could do this in layers, whatever you want to do. We're going to be covering this with black after. Or the next step, I should say. So wait for that to cool off a bit. So now the next step. Now this is where I'm not sure if this is going to work. And you're going to need another paper towel without the gold on it or the metallic. I'm going to fold these over. A fresh paper towel. That's got water on it. Make sure it's dry. It's got a nice pattern to it. Shake. So again, I don't know if this one's going to work. It might be a little bit too fluid. Make sure I get every part of it covered. Don't let this dry. Come in, paper towel on top, and just rub. Don't rub the paper towel across the card. Just put it down and then burnish it with your hands. So you get something like that. Get a little bit of the rose gold showing through now. Then you can use that for an actual background. Whoops. Now what I want to do is take the paper towel on the clean side, and I want to, and this will be more of a feel. I'm getting the paint where it's tacky, and I'm pulling it up, and actually the paint is lifting up. This takes a little bit of practice. If you listen, see how you hear that? That's the paper towel sticking. And if you find that it's not coming up, you can spray water onto your hands. Drip it on the card. It's getting everywhere except the card. See, it's too big. Wait for a couple of seconds and then press and lift up, and it helps bring some of that stuff out. If you drag it, you may see it pulls too much. It's unpredictable doing it when you actually rub it, but you know what? Experiment and see what happens. Where you've dripped the water, it dissolves the paint, and the metallic paint underneath, what it does is that because it's glossy, the gesso the paint isn't sticking over it. Now if it was a black gesso, it'd be a little bit harder to remove, but because it's the transparent carbon black or opaque carbon black, because it's the media fluid acrylics, it doesn't quite stick to the shiny stuff, which is why I love using this paint for this technique. But you just have to experiment. What's the worst that can happen? All right, so let me just clean that up. I don't want any of the black coming up there. Okie dokie. I'm going to dry that for a little bit. Dry that for a little bit. Good grammar. I'm going to dry this. This particular thing is a great way to make, if you know, a bit bigger, you can make personalized tags for this. I'm also going to be doing a couple of videos to show you how to do this technique without actually having these particular stencils. So you don't have to have these. You can use other things as well. Waiting for that to cool down. Okay. So let's put that there. Now, ideally, if you can do this on bigger cardstock, because then you can trim it down to size. I have to be a little bit more careful to make sure I get it exactly the right size. I'm going to get a stencil brush. Now, the problem with the fluid acrylics is that because they're much thinner, they actually sometimes seep underneath. I'm really, really tempted to go to the gesso, the Decor Art Media gesso, because it's much thicker. I also don't want to lose, am I going to lose that nice, oh, I really like that. I don't want to lose that. Oh, well. No water in the brush. So this we have to do wet on wet, or sorry, not wet on wet. We don't want to let this dry. So we're going to paint this, and then what we're going to do is we're going to put the stencil on top, and then we're going to wipe it out. So I've got a baby wipe handy. And I am thinking I probably should have used the thicker paint. Just using a stencil brush. Now, pop quiz. Why aren't I doing a scrubbing why aren't I doing a circular stroke like that? Why am I just pouncing up and down? So pop your answer below. And when you're answering the question, repeat the question, type out the question, then your answer, because because I ask so many questions as pop quizzes, and I need to know which one you're answering. I'm going to go back over now another layer. All right. Hopefully this is going to work. I've got a baby wipe here. I'm going to put this on top. And now I'm going to use the baby wipe. And the table is going to shake. And I'm going to press hard and wipe out the circles. Now, we've got 2 layers of stencils that we're going through. So this is not going to be pretty. It's not going to be delicate. A Q-tip. Oh, Q-tip would have worked well. The grip tools one would have been good for this. Oh, where is that? Shoot. Okay, I'll have to do another video on that. So it's going to be quite rough. So you've got that. Now, I didn't remove enough of the background. Can I still... It's not really... I could follow the letters. I could actually draw it around. This works well if it's done within about an hour, because the paint hasn't cured yet. And however you want to do the inside, just this part you have to make sure you go to a clean spot on the paper towel or the baby wipe. So I think now if I were to do this again, I would actually wipe it out a little bit more. You know what? I'm going to do that. Let's do this again. Okay, so that's what I've got. So let's put that aside. Let's do another one. Put that in there. Oh, better get my brush. Oh, so let's see what we can do. So this part doesn't change. I want to make sure that's primed really well. No water. Dries super fast because we're not using water. We're pushing it into the paper. If you were to have water in the brush, the cardstock might curl. Okay, that's all right. And we're going to dry that. I'm going to speed this part up. No, I'm not. You can speed it up if you want. I want to show the whole process. All right, let me just get those brushes out of the way. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to let this dry a little bit longer. But I'm going to put a couple more layers so this is a bit of a stronger finish to it. Whatever color that you're putting on here, that's what's going to show through the black. So if you want to texturize it or leave it flat, I'm going to leave it flat. I'm not going to use the paper towel to texturize it this time. But I am going to put a couple of layers to make sure that it's really strong because it is still a little bit transparent. And I am going to use the Grip Tools cotton swabs this time instead of the baby wipe to wipe it out. See, the problem with doing the experiments when you're changing multiple things is I don't know which technique or what thing I'm using that's really going to improve what I did before. So is it going to be that I put on multiple layers of the extreme sheen metallic paint and let them dry? Or is it going to be that I'm going to use the Grip Tools cotton swabs to wipe out the circles? I don't know. Ideally, if you're going to do experiments, you want to try to keep the experiments to one thing per, so you can see what results you get. Just going to soften that out a little bit. There we go. Okay, I'm going to let that dry completely. And that actually didn't turn out. Now I'm looking here and I think I know what went wrong here is because the paint was pretty fluid. I think see now this is where I'm going to now make the experiment even worse. I think I'm going to use the black gesso instead of the media fluid acrylics. So I've changed how I did this. I'm going to change how I'm going to wipe it out, and I'm going to change the actual paint. That's three things. So if something doesn't work, I'm not going to know which one it is. So for you guys, when you're doing the experiments, try to pick one thing. But now I'm also wondering, I'm looking at this, because the black is very similar to this, what if I use chromatic black instead of the background and then use carbon black for this because it'll be stronger? Huh, okay, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So because this is a red color, this is reddish, I'm going to make my chromatic black with ultramarine blue and burnt umber. Is that what I want to do? Or do I want to make it more on the blue side? This is what's telling me what to do. I'm not logically thinking about it. I'm just thinking about what it would look like. So you beginners are going to be having a field day with this because of all the thought process that I'm using. When deciding on the color, So this is where you're going to choose this is a typical thing in the studio. I get all excited and I experiment and I experiment. So that's a type of gray. So this is a true underlying color. That there. That's a true underlying color. So it's a black that leans towards blue. So that'll work with this. I'm not going to add white to it, but the chromatic black will actually work. So that way I can make it still dark, but it'll have a different tone to that. All right, so I'm going to let this dry completely. And then we come back and then we'll continue on doing that same step. Okay, so this is dry now, and I got some of the cotton swabs. For the record, I don't know where you are if you have a Princess Auto, but you can probably go to Grip Tools and look to see where you can get. It's a massive bag of all these different size cotton swabs. I got this at Princess Auto. I'm in Hamilton. I got the one on Barton Street. So I bought it a while ago, and I think I bought 15 packages. But I love these. It's because they're really, really strong. And then when I've used these, if I can't repurpose them for something else, I'll cut these off and I'll use these little sticks for stirring sticks. Now I also toned down the lights because of the glare. Hopefully this will make it a little bit easier to deal with. So I'm going to get my paper towel. So we're going to paint chromatic black, then use the paper towel to distress some of that out, and then put the stencil on top, paint it black, then use the dotted stencil to pull out some of the color. We'll have to see what this looks like. Oh, this is really transparent. Wow. Yeah, this is really transparent because the ultramarine blue is transparent. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Now, the unfortunate thing is that you can't put a layer, let it dry, then put another layer and let it dry, because we want to distress this and we don't want it to cure. So I'm going to create some interesting angles. And I'll just use I'm not going to use the textured part that leaves the lines. I'm going to use this side here. Look at that. That is cool. And you know what? Let's try this. See, another experiment. I'm going to dry this. I'm not going to distress any of it out because I think this is enough lightness to actually put some contrast in there. Let's see if I can just do the edges. And the edges, what I'm doing is I'm trying to bring it down to the metallic, but it's not so much for the distressing, it's so I can pick it up and have the thing not stick to me. Ooh. There's some paint coming up there. Take that, do a little bit of water. Yeah, it's cured a little bit too much, but that's fine. What I'm trying to do is lighten. Alcohol would actually work on that. Yeah, I dried it a little too much, but it's coming. It's coming. Just putting some water on the edges. Here we go. Just trying to get a little more contrast in there for the edge. Here we are. Okay, so you have to figure out how much you want to dry this depending on how much more you want to work with it. So now let's get all this prepared. So I'm going to use the, should I stick with carbon black or should I work with the gesso? You know what? I'm going to work with the gesso. Okay, so I'm going to have to explain after the fact everything I did. So I can document the experiment. So I'm going to try the gesso because it's thicker, but ideally only one experiment per piece. That way you'll know what the results are for each one. Oh, this is a bit big, but okay. So I'm going to use the Decor Art Media. This is the black gesso. Pounce, put that on top, and then I'm going to use the cotton swab to pull the pieces out, and I'm thinking I might need more than one. Oh, of course you're going to fall out of the bag. Sorry for the noise. Okay. What if you actually painted through that? Nope, another video. That's going to be for another video. Now I could have used a Decor Art Traditions carbon black, but what I'm going to have with that is a shiny finish, and I want this to be a matte finish. That should be crisp enough. Should. Okay, so first I'm going to take a paper towel that's slightly damp, and I'm going to wipe the excess. Because the stencils are so thick, so I'm not using a baby wipe because the baby wipe was too wet. So I'm just using the excess. So wiping out the excess. Then I'll use the cotton swabs. Now what if I put that into a tad of water? A tad of water? That doesn't make any sense. Ooh, that's really wet. Now the reason, I'm going to talk about it because this is going to be tedious. The reason why, another reason why, is that when you're doing experiments, you really only want to try one thing at a time. Is if something goes wrong, I don't look at that as a bad thing. I look at that as a learning experience, a learning opportunity. So because I've done so many variations in this one, like the freaking camera moving, if something doesn't go right, I'm not going to know what it is. So I won't know for next time what not to do. See, now if I'm going to try this, now I'm going to go with alcohol because the paint is drying. Yeah, the alcohol works great. So is the alcohol working great because it's working great with the gesso? Or is it working great because it's a stronger solvent? Or is it because I'm using the grip tools, cotton swabs? What is it? So ideally, every variation from the original, I should do that into its own unique experiment. Now there is another video I want to do with this. What I think I'll use that opportunity to show you the experiments, but I'm going to do the experiments in individual videos so you don't get overwhelmed with all the information. Because with the experiments, those experiments are very personal. It's based on what I've done. So it's kind of hard to replicate an experiment where there's a mistake because we all do the things differently. Okay, so I'm liking using the alcohol. I wonder if that would have worked the same way with the paint. Oh, what am I doing here? No, there's nothing there. So I'm just going back over, making sure I try to remove as much of the paint as possible. Now I guess what else, the other thing I could have done is just stencil some metallic paint over that, but then I wouldn't get this nice rough distressed look. I know this is tedious, but art's about trying different things, so there are no quick fixes. Where's the fun in that? Okay, let's try this. Just cover that up. Get these all out of the way. Okay. I'm not minding that. I'm not a fan of the pattern in the back. Not a fan. I'm liking, so I like this pattern here, but I like the way that the impression came here. So what we can do, now this is again all dependent on what you want to do. Wonder if I could make some little, oh, it would help if I had paint. Let's use carbon black for that. Just to create some broken lines. This is too big. That's too big. I gotta go with something smaller. Even this is too big. So I'll take the paint off half of it. Well, I really went crooked on that one. Holy smokes. You can use a pencil if you want. Excuse me. Can use a brush to vintage the edges. Again, it's all about experiments. This one will not go. Okay, what is wrong with this one? Oh, there's texture. So the plastic card isn't touching the piece. So you can vintage the edges like that, or I'll just have to use a paper towel for this because my bristle brushes in water. You can come in and just darken the edges this way. These cards have to cure overnight before you can do anything with them because of the metallic paint. It's got to cure. I like that. I like that. You know what? Is it too late? Nope. There we go. Yeah, could have done a different color as well. Could have came in with metallics on the outside edge. Well, it was a little aggressive there. So what I learned from this experiment, first of all, is don't do too many variations because I don't know what went right and what went wrong because I used so many different things. But what I have noticed with what I did Okay, so I know that I don't like the way I used the paper towel on this one. I also scratched this here. I like the idea of the chromatic black in the background. So I'm thinking, now I've also never used this paint to do this technique. It may be changing the type of metallic. Could be that. Rubbing alcohol with the tiny cotton swabs definitely worked out well. And next time I'm going to make the card bigger so I have more handling room, because, you know, as I'm touching it and depending on when I'm working on it, my finger's lifting up and it's actually pulling up the paint. But I'd like to figure out working on a more distressed background, keeping everything still the two-tone, but working on a more distressed background, almost like a grungy, with the metallic paint. So that's going to be something to try. And letting it air dry, because I actually let this one, the second one I did, I let that air dry where I put the metallics for an hour. It was still sticky though, but an hour I let it air dry without the heat gun. What else I'm thinking? Yeah, rubbing alcohol, yes. Cotton swabs, yes. Chromatic black, yes. So the one thing is I'm going to have to check is changing up the metallic, making the card bigger, and finding a better way to distress the edges, because I like this one, not a fan of this one, but it's just a matter of just, is it the paper towel that I used? Is it the fact that I should have used a bristle brush to try to distress it? All these different things. So because timing is an issue with this, because of the paint, you have to, it's all about timing. So it's just a matter of experimenting with those things. So that's that. Now I do want to show you one that I did previously. That one there. So now this one here, this has a ton of texture on it. This is perfectly smooth. It is perfectly smooth. I haven't got a clue how I did this one. Not a clue. It is perfectly smooth. There is not 1 ounce of texture on it. If with how I feel it, it could have been a print. I have no idea how I did this. But these have so much texture. So I would like to figure out what I did on these ones here. Background looks a little similar, but I'm looking at this and I'm wondering, you know what? This may be I see print in the back, so this is actually, this is product packaging with a little bit of gesso. I wonder if this is just plain acrylic paper without any gesso. I don't know, but this is what I was going for. But you know, there's nothing wrong with these other than this one here. I don't like the way that that came through, because I was using the fluid acrylics on here. It was just too watery. It got underneath the stencil. So I do know where I went wrong in some places. Where I want to take a opportunity to learn from is the distortion on the back, a better technique on that, for sure. You know, figure a better way of distressing the background, because I like the contrast and I like the idea of the chromatic black. So we'll put that one out there and we will stick with this one. Alrighty, so I hope that this gives you an idea of how to use layering stencils when using the reducing method. So letter, stencil, and then I use it to remove some of the paint with the dots, and you can use any stencil for that. So I'll do a few more videos to show you different things that you can do, including using stencils that you may already have. That way you don't have to buy anything new. But if you really like using this technique, I mean, you can use, instead of using a letter stencil, you can use any other stencil that gives you a lot more room to play with. All right, I know it's kind of confusing right now, but you'll see in an upcoming video. Alrighty, so comments below, feedback or something else you'd like to see me try, any suggestions for future videos. Don't forget, you could always go to my website at artplace.ca, click the contact link in the menu to send me a personal request. I read every single email and I try to accommodate everybody the best that I can. Alrighty, so until I see you next time, stay inspired.